Thank you. See you so much. Hi, Christine. Hi, Christian. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you.
Not too bad.
Great to be
Thanks for
here.
having
Everything's
us.
working technically, I think. So yes, I'm running today's session. So just to recap our views, if you didn't catch me earlier today, I'm the founder of Beyond Form. So I'm Peter Junho Sang, the founder of Beyond Form, which is a venture studio building impact-driven fashion technologies. We run various programs to support the fashion tech ecosystem. One of those being our Fashion Tech Lab based in Paris, which is a 400 square meter site that houses a showcase showroom, a makerspace with sponsors such as IBM, Lectra, and TG3D Studio, and also our co-working space, which houses our startup incubator program. So the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to be in panel conversation with Christine Goulet, who is the Global Director for Pangaya B2B. So interesting to get her viewpoints from a brand perspective. And then Christian, who is the head of UK of the Mills Fabrica UK. So from a more of an incubator side. So I'm going to get you guys to introduce yourselves in a second. So I guess I'll start with Christian. Tell us more about the Mills Fabrica and what it does.
Sure. So we're a few things. I suppose most people know us as a startup accelerator. We work within the fashion industry across the supply chain, new material innovators, as well as new circular business models. We also have co-working spaces. We run industry events and cultural programs. Um, and alongside that, we also have an investment fund. So we invest in startups across those different fields. And the Mills Fabrica, for those who don't know, started out in Hong Kong back in 2018. We are now opening in a few weeks' time in London in King's Cross. So hopefully widening out our network from Asia and bringing it into Europe and building that sort of the wider ecosystem. So really excited to be here. Thanks for hosting us, Peter.
Thanks, Christian. And then Christine, introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So yeah, very happy to be here today talking about the fashion tech ecosystem. So I am currently at Pangaya. I joined recently to lead the B2B activities. So Pangaya is both a direct-to-consumer material science brand as well as now a B2B innovation platform. So I like to call it the innovation concierge because we can offer sort of a full service menu of fabrics, of botanical dyes, of antimicrobial treatments and technologies such as flower down, which is like a non-animal, non-petroleum based insulation. So lots of opportunity, and the purpose is really to try to disseminate some of these amazing technologies to help lower the impact of the fashion sector overall and really communicate that also as well as possible to the consumer and create a movement. So yeah, very happy. Previously, I was at Kering working in sustainable innovation, so have been focused on the sustainable fashion innovation space for the last four years or so. So yeah,
Thanks,
very good.
Christine. So for the next, I guess, 25 minutes now, we're going to be dissecting the fashion tech ecosystem. What's working? What isn't working? Who are some of the main actors being building up the ecosystem, shall we say, and what can be done more of, I guess, taking the space further. So I'm just going to come back to you, Christian. Why, I guess, did the Mills Fabrica team think that it was needed to open up a UK site, branching out from your Hong Kong site?
Yeah, I mean, the main purpose is, really allowing us to build an international ecosystem. We like to call ourselves builders of ecosystems, whether it's working with the startups as well as the manufacturers, the companies, governments, NGOs, and the schools, are coming to London. I think one represents opening a gateway into the UK, but also Europe more widely. And being able to build that bridge between Hong Kong and the gateway into Asia and London, the gateway into Europe, I think really allows us to have a really strong network. Also, I think most accelerators and funds, sort of focus more on the West and Europe and the US and Silicon Valley. So I think we bring a bit of a different perspective, and are able to certainly make good strides and connections with manufacturers across both of the continents that we're operating in now. And also, I think, London is the UK generally, with sort of Johnson's Green Industrial Revolution plan. There's a lot of R&D funding. There's a lot of amazing institutions, and appetite, I think, from consumers as well to go into a more sustainable future. So out of the European cities, I think London made the most sense for that purpose.
Yeah, and I guess is anything new that we might be expecting from the new UK site that the Hong Kong site isn't necessarily doing at the moment?
Well, we're opening our building hopefully towards mid-June, in King's Cross. So this will be a space both open to the public and open to our members. So we'll have co-working spaces, events for the industry and the public alike. We're bringing a concept store where hopefully we'll be able to amplify and showcase a lot of these amazing innovations to the consumers and the wider public, that often people don't see. So if Pangaea is working on amazing technology in the background, oftentimes when you get to the end product, you don't really get to kind of discover and touch and feel and understand the work that went into that. So that's one element. The other is that, alongside the fashion industry, we're also expanding into the food industry. So looking at ag tech and food tech, there really is a lot of innovation within food. It's more regulated, there's more data. I think, probably a more difficult space to operate in. You're talking about food, you're talking about shorter shelf lives, bigger distribution systems, and a lot more waste potentially. So there's a lot of synergies that the fashion and food industries can learn from one another. So we're really excited about building that up.
Super excited to see what you're going to do with it when it does actually launch. I guess coming to you, Christine, I know that you've worked with, or come across hundreds of startups in the fashion tech space over your various roles in the past. Can you tell us a bit more about some of the changes that you've seen developing over the last few years?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's been an incredible journey, I think, in the space overall in the last 4 or 5 years. It's just there, there's been a proliferation of innovators coming in. Investors have started becoming more engaged. Brands are much more open to testing and experimenting. So overall, you can see that there's a lot of energy, a lot of optimism, and a lot of appetite to start working in toward a more sustainable fashion paradigm overall. And the realization that you need innovation to do that, that you can't just keep making small incremental changes. You really have to, even though it's hard, bite off, sort of bite the bullet and say, we're going to do something new and different, and really make sure that we're shifting the way that we're working to create a more, a less impactful in terms of environmental footprint type of way of producing our clothing, for example. So it's growing quickly. I think there's a bit of a bubble potentially around it. There's a lot of could be hype. So I think we have to be careful of making sure that we are working together to see results. And I think what's interesting too is sort of this convergence. We have biotech, we have digital. Um, there's a lot happening in that's bringing different sectors that traditionally haven't worked together. And so I think that's an exciting opportunity as well, to draw, because some of the best innovation doesn't necessarily come from your own space, but can be found by looking to other spaces like food. As Christian said, there could be some real synergies. And so I love seeing this convergence of different sectors, different expertise, because I think that can be quite powerful.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think that the fashion industry is kind of slowly embracing that, but I think definitely more could be done. Going back to your point
Mhm.
there, so I guess this is a question to both of you. Kind of like, what are the challenges there then that a tech startup or fashion tech startup may be facing to enter the space, enter the industry, or get the support that they need to take them to the next level? I guess,
Christine, you take
Christine, shall I
that one.
start
I
with
feel like
you?
you have a lot more experience in that realm.
You want me to go first?
You
Yeah.
go first.
Well, okay. Well, I think one of the challenges, as I was just saying, there are a lot of different sectors converging right now, but it's very hard to connect the dots. So there are pieces that exist, but you kind of have to search and for especially for the startups, there are very few sort of one-stop shops where they can go and they get the biotech expert that they need, or the digital expert, or they need to talk to someone in merchandising and design and link it back to whatever their technology is. And getting that full picture, I think, is a real challenge right now to the startups. I think another thing that's difficult, going back to the investor spaces, traditionally fashion has been underinvested in many ways, and if you look at how much fashion brands have been spending on R&D compared to other sectors like pharmaceutical or cosmetics, it's been really underinvested. So there's not such a great understanding of why to invest in this space, and maybe not as much of an appetite for risk among investors to look toward innovators in this space. I think it's changing, but it's new. And I've spent many conversations with investors over the years saying, well, as a brand, what are you going to do with this? And why are you interested in this? And what do you see the potential as being? And do you think brands like yours will do the same thing? So yeah, it's kind of a theme of connecting the dots, or trying to get the pieces of the puzzle in place, which I guess I'm focusing on today, which I think is important for the ecosystem. So for startups, it can be a challenge uh, to find all those right pieces and to get the financial support as well. But it's moving.
Yeah,
It's getting better all the time.
I agree with that. Christine, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, totally spot on. I think a lot of the, in the space that we're looking at is, the future has to be sustainable, and the way that we get there
Mm.
is through innovation, or we stop consuming, right? So I don't think as a planet we're going to stop consuming. We've been drilled to consume, and it's part of society, it's part of what we need. And so the idea is, can we consume without um, further increasing the climate crisis towards which we're heading? And the I think the biggest challenge is in the space that we're looking at for startups that are trying to come up with new materials or new ways of doing things that are net zero or carbon net neutral or even carbon positive, is that often the prices of their services or products are higher than the traditional service, right? So then you end up with what usually you call the green premium, right? So how am I, as a consumer, am I ready to pay that additional 20% or 50%, or maybe it's 200% on top of the traditional products? So if you look at leather, leather is relatively cheap. It's something like 7% of the price of a cow. The rest is really the meat that we want. That's the stuff that's a bit pricier. So when you're talking about alternative leathers like mushroom leathers or pineapple leathers, when you're a big producer and a manufacturer, even if there is an additional 20% or 50%, that's a lot more to pay for the green premium and the alternative than the traditional product. So I think, as Christine said, with investment, with potentially going beyond that, subsidies, you're seeing governments around the world, they're electrifying their cities to transition to the electrical automobile industry. And if it weren't for the subsidies, one wonders, would we transition as quickly? So I think that startups that are tackling these really amazing, problems with new solutions, they're facing number one challenge is your solution a lot more expensive to implement? And then the second is sort of the appetite. So it kind of comes down to supply and demand, which is always what sort of dictates the market. But I suppose from the supply side, startups perhaps need a little bit more help, whether that's from subsidies or whether that's from getting the partners that they work with to accept that, the technologies are still really early on and that they might cost more than the current system that they're working with. So that's what I would say from a sort of a really high level point of view in terms of the challenges that startups probably face on the offset.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
completely
Can
agree
I
with
add?
all the points there. Go ahead. Go
Sorry,
ahead,
I was going
Christine.
to add something too. Sorry, I was going to add something too about the technology. So because I think another thing that's an issue in a way is there's there talking about supply and demand, there's a lot of demand that's coming up where brands want this innovation, for example, and the R&D timelines might not allow for things to come out as fast as brands would like. So setting those expectations of, if you want the right product at the right quality or the right service, there needs to be patience there too. And iteration and working together and developing relationships where you can help improve the technology over time and get it to a place where hopefully, the price might be more, but hopefully you're also getting to that level of quality and performance that you need. So aligning those expectations and understanding that partnerships need to be created that are longer term to bring some of these innovations to light would be really helpful.
Yeah, you kind of read my mind there, Christine. I was going to segue into a question about
Oh, sorry.
timelines because I know that because I know that we always talk about that between you and I. So, but you read my mind. So I guess we talked a lot there about investors actually and how it's underinvested. I guess I don't know if you can talk more about this, Christine. Of course, the Mills Fabrica also has an investment arm as well. So I guess how can we encourage more people like the Mills Fabricas team and the investment team to be actually looking into the space within Europe as well?
Hmm.
I mean, I think,
Uh,
as Christine said, oh, was that a question
Sorry,
for
go
me
ahead.
or for
Yeah.
Christine?
No,
Sorry.
sorry,
Oh,
it was
for
Kristen and
Christine.
Christine. I thought you said Christine, but I thought it
It's
was
so
better for you.
similar.
So please go ahead.
Um, I was just going to say that I think, Christine is right. The funding that the fashion industry gets compared to other industries is quite much lower. So I think, investors and it's funny because the fashion industry is one of the biggest industries in the world. It's a $2.5 trillion industry. That's huge. That's up there
Hmm.
with the food industry. That's up there with the I mean, way higher than the entertainment industry and other big industries. Everyone on the planet has to wear clothes. And so, funny, it's something that we used to talk about when I was in the business of fashion, that, fashion is sort of taken sort of seriously, but not really seriously because it's sort of clicky and it's glamorous and there's all these misperceptions, but actually behind it is a huge business. So investors should get to know get to know it a little bit better, spend more time looking into the innovations and the opportunities, because the opportunity is just tremendous. So that's what I would say, frankly speaking, about that. Christine, you probably have some other thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say kudos to the Mills and other organizations that are putting money behind these innovations and leading the way and able to draw other investors in and able to sort of say, hey, let's partner on this. Um, let's co-invest. Let's build out consortia to really bring these things to life. So it's so important and really inspiring to see.
Yes, and I'm going to inverse that question now, because of course I know that both of you have been pitched at by startups, and I know that we have startups watching. So, can you share any tips that the start to the for the startups to think about if they want to approach somebody for support or for investment or to enter into an accelerator, how they can really sell themselves and to lower, I guess, that fear factor that somebody should be taking a chance on their innovation. Christine, shall we start with you this time?
Was that Christine or Christian?
Christine, sorry, Christine. I know
Okay,
it's becoming
so
difficult.
so what advice would I give startups when they're pitching to help them sort of help their audience sort of understand why it's a good
Yes.
investment for them? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Well, I think, what I always try to say to the startups are like, don't overpromise and underdeliver, because that's never going to be very helpful. But I don't know if the pitch is so different from other startup sectors and what they need to have. I mean, you define the problem, you define the opportunity. What is your solution? What is your business model? Who is your team? How are you going to execute this? You know, what are you forecasting? But I think what would really help for startups is to have sort of bite-sized ways for brands or suppliers to engage with them, because these are new technologies in many cases, new products and services, and you want to make it easy for a brand or a supplier to sort of take that little leap of faith to start working on it, because they don't sort of have that historical basis to go, oh, we tried this before and it worked or it didn't. So, having in mind sort of a low financial commitment, rather quick pilot opportunity where you don't need 5 or 10 decision makers in the room, but 1 or 2 who say, we can try this. This is a good test. Let's go for it. Is a great foot in the door technique, and something where you're providing a solution to the brands instead of asking them to do a lot of the work, I guess, or to your possible partner. And I always say too, like, to really try to be a solution provider and not a technology provider. That's something that I'm really trying to build into the Pangaia B2B model. Because in order for your technology to get off the ground, it might not be a plug and play solution by itself. You might need to make sure that there are other enablers within the market, other stakeholders that are set up and that are ready to make it a reality. So you have to be able to identify who you need to have on board with you to bring your technology to life. And when you try to find your brand or supplier partners or whoever you're selling to, you already have that lined up, again, to make it easy, make it as easy as possible for companies to take a little leap of faith and try your solution.
Yeah, and then Christian.
Yeah, I mean, for any startups looking for help, feel free to reach out to us at the Mills directly. Very happy to give you advice. And um, I think within this space, there's a lot of investors, there's a lot of opportunities. So make sure you network as much as possible. Do your research, simplify it. So I think sometimes we have so many pitches that the best are often the simplest. So send it to your mom and see if your mom understands it. I think the mom test is always highly underrated and could be used a bit more. But also network as much as possible. Reach out to other experts, get advice, question yourself. Really make sure that you do your research on what the problem is. How frequent is that problem? How useful is your solution? Have others done it? And if so, why is yours different? And sometimes we don't really see the unique differentiator between one solution and the other. So I think if you could really work on that, and if there isn't a unique differentiator, then really think about what it is that you're trying to solve. I think having as much clarity really helps. And yeah, collaboration is key. I think we're in a way not reinventing the wheel. We're trying to reset the wheel, break the wheel, especially with innovation and sustainability. And some partners might not get that. But keep looking for the right partner, because there's suppliers and there's companies, like Pangaia. I'm sure they're really open to having conversations. Others are a little bit more traditional. They're going to take a little bit more time, so don't despair. And I think just keep looking and keep your hopes up. These things take time, but there's certainly appetite. And I would say the world is now finally embracing a lot of the technologies that we need to get to where we need to. Net zero by 2050.
We shall see. I completely agree with everything was said, but I think that I just like to echo, simple storytelling goes quite a long way. I see so many fashion tech pitches where they try to tell you so many things all at once because they're trying to check all of the boxes all at once, and it does the inverse of what they're trying to actually achieve. So I think that's probably something, my top tip for anyone trying to seek the support of investors or whoever. So the final question before the session closes, what would you like to see the fashion industry do more of to support the local fashion tech, well, the local and the global fashion tech ecosystem? Christian, I'll come to you first.
Okay. I'm going to understand that as my name this time.
Yeah, that was your name. That was Christian.
Honestly, I think more collaboration, being more open, the fashion industry tends to be really exclusive. It tends to be really very protective. So being able to put that mindset aside and put on a more collaborative hat and welcome conversations and yeah, open up your books and let's see what's there and let's I think an amazing example, for instance, is when Tesla in the car industry put the highest performing, highest range battery out there 5 years, 10 years ahead of the competition. That technology was then made open source so that other companies like Volvo and GM could adapt that technology and are now implementing it in their cars. So if there are companies out there with these types of technologies, whether it's recycling cotton or whatever it is, make them available, make them out there, because you're not going to win alone. We're only going to win if we win together. So collaborate is my message.
And then Christine.
Yeah, I think I agree with Christian. I think collaboration is one of the most important things, connecting the dots, getting different experts in the room to work on things. But I guess another thing, the collaboration can be very concrete, and we need to test technologies. We need to understand what the best application is for different technologies. We need at some point to converge around the ones that are performing the best. So I also, really love the Fashion for Good model of creating these consortia projects where you have, a supplier and a brand and an innovator and this triangulation to get solutions tested. And it's sort of a design thinking methodology in my mind of how to expand upon innovation, because you start with a small project, but it's very concrete. And then with the outcomes of that, you can iterate and you can and either scale or replicate. So I think the collaboration, also trying to make it concrete, to really move the technologies forward, to really improve them and understand them is quite powerful as well.
Completely agree. Well, that's the end of our session. So I'd like to thank you both of you for your insights today. And I'm going to hand over back to the Powwow team.
Thank you so much. We have a question from our audience. If you have a minute, the question is for Christine. It's from Camilla, who says, "Hi Christine, your path is inspiring."
Hi Camilla.
Hi Camilla. I would like to connect with you for a project. How can I do so?
Well, you could find me on LinkedIn and reach out to me. So it's Christine Goulet and Pangaia. You can just search and send me a message if you would like.
Perfect. Sounds like the fastest way, the quickest way.
Hope that answers it.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you, Peter, for running this panel. And have a good evening or day. It depends on where you are in the world now, but I think more or less have a good day could be useful for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for the conversation. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.